Morning, good people. Got a quick video for you today. Well, maybe it's going to be quick. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. But I wanted to talk to you about one of my favorite bands, Radiohead. I have a few of their albums here. I have Kid Amnesia. I used to have their original Kid A, but then got this instead. What else do I have of theirs in here? I have Tom York's Anima. I don't know, there's a few more in here of theirs. But the one that I love the most is this one. It's their album, Hail to the Thief. Now, Radiohead, Tom York specifically, maybe Phil Sayway, maybe the Greenwood Boys. They wrote this at a time after the success of OK Computer, after Kid A and Amnesiac, kind of those sister albums. And while Kid A gets a ton of positive reviews, it's great. It is. It's a masterpiece. OK Computer, obviously Paranoid Android, Karma Police. I personally love the song Electioneering on that album. The Bends, you can go back to their song Creep, which I don't actually own that album because I did, but I didn't listen to it very much, so I sold it. But this one is the one that I love the most for a few reasons. I think that it is a combination of the Bends, which is great, and I think it also is a combination of the Bends with Kid A and Amnesiac. Other than a punch up at a wedding, I don't think there's a song on here that I don't love listening to. They go so many different ways on this album. I mean, 2 + 2 = 5 is a song that I think I could listen to that on repeat for hours and hours, if not days on end. We Suck Young Blood is a fascinating choreography of notes. I saw them perform it live at Alpine Valley in 2003. There is probably the #1 hit from here. I mean, by #1, it's probably the most popular song from this album. And then Myoxymatosis is just a banger. Turn the speakers up loud, just go crazy. I just love playing that song loud. But one of the reasons that I probably love this album the most is because it was during this album's release in the summer of 2004 that I saw Radiohead perform for the very first time. I was living in Grand Rapids, Michigan at the time, celebrating my super senior year of college, and I got 2 tickets and decided to drive to Alpine Valley in Wisconsin. No, it's maybe like a 5 or 6 hour drive. Concert was, I believe, on a Saturday. So me and my buddy Kyle, we drove from Grand Rapids and made the drive to Alpine Valley. And Alpine Valley is where Stevie Ray Vaughan passed away in a helicopter accident, I think anybody who loves guitar knows that place just because it is Stevie Ray Vaughan's. I mean, sadly, in his death, he kind of immortalized the place. And I think that any musician that comes here really wants to honor Stevie Ray Vaughan and put on a show. And Radiohead put on a show. They played, 23 songs. I think 11 of them were from this album. They threw in Paranoid Android. They threw in Karma Police. They put on We Suck Young Blood, and my friend Kyle had no idea how to clap along to that sound. But he killed it. He loved it. And it was an amazing show. I think, I forget who opened up for them. It wasn't the Kinks. Oh, I forget. I should have looked it up, but I didn't. But this album, I'm not going to say it's their best album for the general population, but for me, it is, because it's when I saw them for the very first time. So when I saw Tom York dance for the very first time. And I've seen them perform again. I've seen them perform in Detroit. I've seen Tom York perform on his personal tours promoting Anima, or, well, it was Anima for that one. I saw him perform at the Masonic Temple there in Detroit. And I've seen when Atoms for Peace, what didn't even have a name. I saw Tom York perform with Flea and a couple other guys. Stanley Kubrick was part of that, I believe. Not Stanley Kubrick. Who am I talking about? The guy who does all the artwork for a lot of the Radiohead stuff. Did OK Computer, Amnesiac, Kid A. Did all kinds of the artwork. I mean, partners with Tom York on Anima. So anyways, besides the point, I've seen Radiohead at Alpine Valley. I've seen them in Detroit. I've seen them in LA. I've seen Atoms for Peace perform before they were even known as Atoms for Peace. They did a private venue in front of like 300 people at a small venue in West LA. Freaking blew my mind. But I wish the people there would have shut up and just listened to the music, because it was clearly pissing Tom off at the show. But they kept blowing through all the new material anyways. But this album, Hail to the Thief, is my favorite because I saw him for the first time. And it's also, it was the most dancing I'd ever done at a concert at that point. It was the most fun introducing a friend to Radiohead for the very first time. It was amazing seeing them perform at Alpine Valley, where, I mean, we just sat in the lawn section, but gosh, it was incredible. I've never seen energy like this at a show. But it was a 6-hour drive, and we did it all on a Saturday. We drove, I don't know, we probably left at 10 a.m., drove to Alpine Valley, got some beers, watched the show, had an amazing time, and then we left and drove back to Grand Rapids. And I listened to Radiohead the whole time. I started with their first album. I moved into the Bends and OK Computer, and then moved into Kid A and Amnesiac, and then this album, Hail to the Thief. And it was during this album that I was driving at about, 4 o'clock in the morning, driving my Chevy S10 pickup truck on the 96, just south of Holland, Michigan. Kyle was sleeping in the passenger seat, and I was drinking my coffee, listening to Radiohead, singing along, still having a blast. And it hit me. I got hit with one of the most significant moments of my life, because I was driving, and about 100, maybe 100 yards in front of me, I saw a minivan flip. I learned later somebody fell asleep. I don't even know why I'm talking about this, because music is therapy. That's why. And I saw 5 people fall out of the car. Kids and a mom. And I swerved, and I didn't hit them. By the grace of God, I didn't hit any of them, because 4 or 5 of them were on the ground. And the dad comes out of the car. There's only one seatbelted in the car. And I pulled over. I was a backpacking guide at the time. I had certifications in WEMT and first aid, CPR, basic stuff, right? Like if you broke your femur, I could stick it to a baseball bat and correct it, kind of thing. And I remember yelling at Kyle, "Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up." I ran out of the car, the doors wide open, with Kid A, or with Hail to the Thief blaring in the background. And I ran to this girl. She was probably 6 years old. She was laying on the ground, no blood or anything, but she couldn't move. The dad came out of the car, absolutely in shock, and he didn't speak any English. And I'm like, no tokas, no tokas, because I knew, like, your daughter's injured, your family is injured. But he held her, and I'm like, no tokas, necesitas una doctora. You need a doctor. Don't touch her. You need to hold her head still. And at this time, a semi-truck had gone behind us and blocked both lanes of traffic, and Kyle had called 911. And I was using the best Spanish that I possibly could. Yo quiero ayudar, I want to help. I told them I had CPR first aid. And the dad just looked at me, he's like, no, I have to touch her. And other people had started gathering and pulling off and seeing what they could do, and nobody stepped in. I was the only one who did anything for like 5 people. People called the police. I'm like, go hold their head still. Don't let people move. And the dad, he just looked at his kid. He's like, no. My daughter needs me. And I didn't know what it was to love at that time. And look, his daughter died. And I thought I had all the answers. And I think back to those moments, and there's so much more I could share. I wrote a journal about this. I remember sitting in Panera Bread the next day. I have a journal with like 20 pages writing about this, and I was just sobbing. And Panera Bread, just writing and crying. I still have the drips of tears that are on those pages in that black notebook. And I remember just thinking how much that dad loved his daughter. Loves his daughter. And how much pain he must feel knowing that he fell asleep at the wheel. And his daughter wasn't the only one to die during that day. But I think back to that moment all the time, thinking about the love that dad had for his daughter. And for a long time, Radiohead gave me PTSD. Like, I didn't buy this album, actually. When I about a week after that, I threw this album in the trash. I had the CD. I couldn't listen to it, and I just bought this album a month ago, 2 months ago probably now. And I'm like, I'm gonna listen to this album again. Because I know that I love it, and I do. And I just unwrapped it 2 days ago. Because I didn't know that I could listen to it without feeling deeply some joy from that concert, but mainly pain, because I can't listen to this without thinking about pain. I've had my own stuff in my life. I mean, I think we all have PTSD about something, right? Like, but things can get better. It's been 20 years since I went to that concert. It's been 20 years since I listened, since I've owned this album. And I'm not saying that makes it right. I don't have joy about the situation. But if anything, listening to this album makes me face my trauma. Makes me face that experience. Because guess what? That part of that formed me. And this is something that's true, is I like who I am. I don't think I'm the shit. Like, I don't think I'm like this awesome person. Maybe I am. Some people think that, but I like who I am. And for the longest time, I couldn't say that because I couldn't overcome the pain and trauma that I felt in various parts of my life. But every once in a while, I get these glimpses where I'm like, oh, that made me who I am. And while I don't wish it upon anybody, I like who I am. So, and there's been more. Everybody has hard stuff to deal with, right? Like, people die. People live in ways that you think are terrible ways to live. I can live in ways that I think are terrible to live. But we can heal. And this album now reminds me that I can heal. That you can heal. That time on the freeway driving back to Grand Rapids, it sucked. It was awful. It was terrible. I did the best that I could, but it hurt. And if there's one thing that I want you to know, and this album reminds me of it, is that that's a moment. And sometimes that moment lasts for 2 hours on the freeway. Sometimes that moment lasts for those hours and then for writing 20 pages of journal notes in a Panera Bread while crying. Sometimes it lasts for 20 years. But eventually, you can heal. And this album reminds me that I can heal. I put this on and it do I forget about that moment? No, I remember every single time I listen. I feel the feelings all over again. But it reminds me that I can heal. And I can feel those feelings and still like who I am. Not perfect. Never gonna be perfect. But I got joy. And I can be happy. And I am happy. And shit happens. And it's awful and it's terrible. But it's not the whole picture. And as much as I wish those things didn't happen, they did happen. And they're a part of me. And with a lot of support and a lot of love and a lot of processing and honestly a lot of therapy for that and other things, a lot of music listening, you can like who you are too. So this is a little bit of a different video today. Maybe you turned it off. But if you don't like who you are, this is just a moment. It's not the full picture. If you don't feel loved right now, you can feel loved. Even if it's just in the comments of this video. Even if it's just you and the music. But it's just a moment. And it'll pass. And you'll remember. And you won't move on. But you can have that and know that you like who you are. You love who you are. And there's going to be good things that come in your life. Maybe not right now. And sometimes it might take a day. It might take 20 pages of journals. It might take 20 years. But I can tell you it's worth it to work hard and make all of it part of who you are, and then get to the point where you like who you are. Because guess what? There's a lot of people who love you anyways. Okay, I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. Hasn't been a short video, it's been a long one, but enjoy the music, because it's always possible.